I'll lead straight in to this evening's 41 Club Connects. Tonight we have a star of TV. He has appeared in Life on Mars. He has appeared in Ashes to Ashes. He's currently a mean guy on Emmerdale. And he's also a voice of many voiceovers, and currently is the voice of Screwfix, which he has said is a wonderful thing. And if ever you do hear a Screwfix advert or anything like that, then you really ought to listen out for him. And for those that don't know him, his name is Dean Andrews. And I'm going to spotlight his screen. I'd like you all to give him a warm welcome in a silent clap as he introduces himself and tells you an evening full of fun stories. Here you go, Dean.
Oh, over to me. Hello, everybody. As Mark said, I'm Dean Andrews. If you do know me at all, you will probably know me from Life on Mars, Ashes to Ashes, maybe Last Tango in Halifax, and if none of those, then maybe something else along the way. Been in quite a few things, Silent Witness, and Vera, and all that kind of stuff that most actors have been in at some point. So, I suppose the very unusual thing about me being an actor is that I never wanted to be an actor. B, never trained or had any lessons to be an actor, as many people would probably say, yeah, we can tell. But I also didn't start acting until I was about 40 years old. And so if I give you a little bit of background on where I came from, that might enlighten you to where I got to when I did start acting. So my mum and dad were both very part of the entertainment world. My dad was a club singer in the Northern Club circuit. So since I was a young boy, I used to go and watch Dad sing on many stages around the country, really. He was a lovely singer, and so he was a big part of entertainment. My mum was also a big part of amateur dramatics, and also, again, quite a lovely singer. And I was introduced to the amateur dramatics when I was around about 8 or 9, and starred in 1 or 2 Gilbert and Sullivan and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of got me into entertainment, and I always wanted to sing. Obviously, not obviously, but because Mum and Dad were both singers, I'd got a voice there. And we took over pubs when I was about 12 with the old pub pianists. So I used to get up in the pub and sing, and people used to be really kind and say nice things. So when I first left school, I actually, a little bit like Marcus, I went to work for a dealership, a car dealership, a Vauxhall dealership, working in the parts department. And after about 48 minutes, I realised that wasn't the route for me. So I started to try to become an entertainer, and succeeded when I was about 17, and sang around the clubs, holiday camps, eventually kind of cruise liners and all that kind of stuff, and anywhere where they'd pay a few quid for somebody who'd sing a few songs. So that was me for about, certainly until I got to 40. And then when I became, the way it came about that I ended up acting was a gentleman called Ken Loach, who most of you will have heard of. If you haven't, he was the film director who directed Kes and many other wonderful films, and he's a bit of a legend within the British film industry. Anyway, he came to Sheffield to shoot a film called The Navigators, and within his films, he likes to shoot them very documentary-esque, and he likes some non-actors within the piece. And to find his non-actors, he goes to entertainment agencies and basically auditions hundreds of singers, comedians, entertainers, of which I was one. We went through numerous castings or auditions. Anyway, cut a long story short, after about 6 or 7 of those auditions, I ended up with one of the major roles in it. It was a story about 5 railway workers, a gang of mates that worked together all the time, and the privatisation of British Rail through Margaret Thatcher. But I ended up being one of the 5 guys. and thoroughly enjoyed it. Ken was an absolute joy. After about a year of after making it, it kind of hit the cinemas. Not in a big way, not in a Hollywood kind of way, but in a Ken Loach kind of way, which was probably hit 50 cinemas throughout the country, and you know, art houses and things like that. One of the professional guys that was in it took his agent along to see it, and she saw the film and got in touch with me and said, "I thought you did okay. I'd like to put you forward for some work." I said, "Well, I've never acted before." She said, "I can tell." I think I've used that gag already. Anyway, so she put me forward for some work, and within about 6 weeks, I got a role in a prison drama called Buried, which was a wonderful thing to be part of. And people say a lot about, oh, there must be a lot of money in television. Well, I can tell you that I was on 450 quid a week on Buried, and fortunately for me, it won BAFTA for Best Drama against some really brilliant dramas on more commercial type TV, because this was on Channel 4. It was on at 10:30 at night because it was very hardcore. And anyway, we went on to win the BAFTA for Best Drama, which was incredible. And so when you're part of something like that, it kind of helps you progress to other things. So from there, I kind of got on some really cool things like Clocking Off, if you remember that, No Angels, Blue Murder with Caroline Quinton, and you know, the usual kind of run-of-the-mill stock dramas that you get one episode of. After a couple of 3 years of doing that, I got a lucky break, a really lucky break, in a K melodrama, which starred both Brenda Blethyn, which is not easy to say at this time of night after a gin and tonic, Brenda Blethyn and Alan Armstrong. And Alan Armstrong, for me, is a big hero. He's a great actor. He was in Get Carter and all kinds of brilliant stuff like that. And the reason why it was a very lucky break was I'd auditioned for one of the lead roles in it, and a really tall, dark, handsome fella got it. I don't know how he got that over me, but he did. So but they liked me, and they'd given me a very small role in a couple of the episodes. Anyway, cut to about a week before filming was starting, and one of the guys in a different role had been offered a film, and he'd said to them, "Look, I'm not coming to do your drama because I've been offered a film." So very last minute, they kind of dragged me in and said, "Would you read for this?" So I read for it, and I don't think they got any choices at that point. So I ended up with the role, but I got to act with Brenda Blethyn and Alan Armstrong. Also part of it was the wonderful Liz Smith, who was the grandma in the royal family, and the legend Norman Wisdom. And to spend some time with Norman Wisdom was, well, it was a catch-22 really, because he was obviously one of the greatest stars that this country's ever seen. But it was also a little bit of a nightmare to work with, because he was forever being funny. He was doing what he does. So, but the pleasure was all in working with him and seeing him around. But for me, the education of that was with Brenda Blethyn, and because we kind of played lovers, it was a little bit like Lady Chatterley's lover. So she was kind of the lady of the manor, and I was the bit of rough. Once again, no idea how I got that role. But it was a real pleasure to work with her, and she taught me an awful lot, as did Alan Armstrong. A really lovely fella, and dead down to earth, and he played Thénardier in the original Les Miserables. What more could you want? So that kind of, again, got me firmly fixed in acting. And nobody had said to me at that point, "We've realised that you've never been trained and you're not a proper actor, are you? So, you know, rock yourself on." So I was doing all right at that point. Then I got asked to go and audition for a new show called Life on Mars. Well, I don't know about you guys or girls, but I'm not a fan of sci-fi. I've never watched Star Trek or Star Wars or Jedi or whatever it all is. So I thought, this sounds a bit weird, Life on Mars. Anyway, I went along just so I didn't upset anybody. Went into the room, and normally an audition, you will be in there for 15, 20 minutes. They'll ask you a bit about yourself. Then they'll ask you to read whatever it is they want you to read. You'll read it. They'll say, thanks very much. We'll be in touch, kind of thing. Well, if I was in this particular audition for more than 4 or 5 minutes, I'll be amazed. A mate of mine had travelled to London with me in my Citroen Picasso, and I came out and went, well, that's another one gone. Anyway, obviously it hadn't gone, and I got the role. I nearly turned it down because my character Raymondo, though he was there all the time, he didn't really have a massive role to play within it. He was just there all the time, smoking and chewing a lot, and saying the odd line or two. So I nearly turned it down until they came up with the money, and then I accepted it. But we had a great time on that. And again, some cracking actors with Phil Glenister and John Sim, Liz White. It was a real dream team, along with brilliant writing, a great storyline, some great stories within the piece, and a great arc for everybody to be massively part of. And Life on Mars and Ashes is one of those programs that, as an actor, if it comes along once in a lifetime, then you've kind of struck the jackpot. It's a real one-off show that ended up going around the world. Michelle Pfeiffer's husband bought the rights to it for America. They made an American one that wasn't obviously half as good as the British one, and kind of died a little bit. But it did it phenomenally well throughout the world, and it's still really, really close to a lot of people's hearts. They're still talking about it. They still have nights where they watch episodes and talk through Twitter. So it's a real honour to have been part of something like that that's been so great. And again, that makes you even more popular within the business. And I went on from there to Last Tango in Halifax, which again is a phenomenal piece of work by Sally Wainwright. Again, it won BAFTAs for Best Drama. It had got Sir Derek Jacobi in it, who, if you'd have told me 20 years before I'd be working with the likes of Sir Derek, then I'd have thought you'd had a few drinks too many. Annie Reid's in there, Sarah Lancashire, and Nicola Walker, who played my wife, or I played her husband, and Nicola, I think 5 years ago I'd have said she's one of the most underrated actors in the country, but I don't think I can say that anymore because everybody's realised how brilliant she is. Sarah Lancashire's amazing, Annie Reid is incredible, and Sir Derek is just an absolute joy to work with. So that was that. I then kind of fell out with acting a little bit, just got a little bit fed up of this, that and the other within the business. So I went back to singing, went out on the cruise liners for P&O, and did their flagship, the Britannia, for 2 or 3 years, traveling the world, and taking my missus with me, and just enjoying getting back to singing, which is actually my first love. Acting is something I never really wanted to do in particular. Didn't think I was able to do it, being a Rotherham lad. Not many people in the early 70s became actors from Rotherham, so it was never really on my horizon. But entertaining and singing has always been a great love of mine throughout my family. Started with my great grandma, who used to sing at the piano in the pub just to get people to buy her some stout or whatever it was. We're easily bought, our family. And that's kind of it. Now I've been on Emmerdale for around about 14 or 16 months. They've been trying to get me on there and Coronation Street for a few years now, but I didn't really think it was the right time at that point. When they came to me this time, I'm driving towards 60, years of age rather than anywhere near 50 years of age. So I thought it was a good time to join in. A nice regular gig. It's in the Yorkshire Dales, which are absolutely beautiful. And I get a few storylines that are quite interesting, and I get some folk who I enjoy their company. So that's where I am right at this moment, and that's a little bit about where I've come from and what I've done, and maybe if there's any questions that anybody would like to ask about Life on Mars or Last Tango or any of the people I might have worked with, or how I got to where I've ended up, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But if there's anything that you'd like to ask, I'll be more than happy to try and answer.
Awesome. Okay, so we do have a few questions for you. What we'll do, they'll come down in the chat. So what I'll do, I'll find the person who asked the question, and then I'll unmute them so they can actually ask. Right, so I've got to find Hugh, and then I will find Hugh, and he's got a few questions for you. And but let's, right, hang on. Hi Hugh, can you hear us? Oh, guess what? I can't unmute him. Where's Hugh? And can you unmute yourself, Hugh? Well, this is where you get 120 odd people in different places. Right, Hugh, are you there? This feels like a seance. Where's oh, Hugh? Was it you, Hugh? Was asking all the questions? Can you, Hugh Millward? Is that you? Is it you that asking all the questions? Can you unmute? Or shall I just ask for you? Oh, there's Edward.
Hello.
Hello. Right, well, okay, I shall ask Hugh's questions for him because he can't find the unmute button. So he says, he asked 3 questions. In Ashes to Ashes, did you understand the ending? He also says, what did you think of your hair perm in Ashes to Ashes? And there was one more. Did you enjoy working with Gene Hunt?
Right. Okay. So yes, I did understand the ending. I thought it was absolutely brilliant the way that the way that they put it together. We didn't know the ending right until the very final series of Ashes, and then they kind of let us into the secret of how we'd all got there and why we were there, and then I thought the ending was quite apt really, because the Railway Arms, which if you've not seen the DVD you won't need to buy it now, but the Railway Arms was kind of the gateway to heaven, and Gene Hunt was kind of the Archangel Gabriel guiding us on our pathway to to heaven really. And I thought it was a really beautiful scene, and I thought Keely was amazing. It was an amazing performance from Keely for that. So yes, I understood it. No, I didn't know about it beforehand until we got very close to shooting it. My perm in Ashes to Ashes, I obviously had slightly more hair than I've got these days. They did ask me if I wanted a permanent perm, but being from Rotherham, I couldn't have a permanent perm or I got my head kicked in. So they used to do it every morning with some little bendy pink rollers, and I looked ever so cool. So that was how the perm came about. They wanted the kind of, can I say, a porn star look with the curly hair and the moustache, and so that's how the perm was created on a daily basis. And the final question was, what was it like to work with Gene Hunt? Phil Glenister is a really great actor. He's a really nice chap, very charismatic, great impressionist, just a nice fellow. And we worked together for 5 years, so we never got to fisticuffs. So we must have got on okay, and we're still friends to today. So yeah, I enjoyed working with Phil.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I think I'm going to ask all the questions because on behalf of all the others, because it's going to be difficult for me to find everyone. So we'll try and keep it nice and smooth. Was there a good team spirit on Life on Mars?
Yeah, there was a great team spirit. I mean, John Sim on Life on Mars was he was really up against it. To be fair to the lad, he had to be in every single scene. He holds the record for being in the most scenes in any one drama. He got lots of lines to learn. He was there from 7 in the morning till 7 at night every single day, and he was, you know, again. He got a great personality. He was a Man U fan, so Phil's an Arsenal fan. Marshall was a Macclesfield Town fan, and I'm a Rotherham United fan. So we had football as a common interest. You have to admire John as an actor because of what he was creating during Life on Mars. Phil too. Phil had a real weight on his shoulders with that role, and they both really stepped up to the plate. Liz White is actually from Rotherham too. So to have two people from a very, very small, insignificant town in the north of England in one of the, you know, most successful dramas around is I quite like that fact. Liz is a great actor as well. So yeah, we had a real, and so, you know, the peripheries. I say peripheries, I don't mean that. I mean the supporting that weren't in every single day, but were in the whole series. They were terrific as well. So yeah, we had a great team on there. Really good.
It's fantastic. And he talks about having a lot of lines to remember. Arthur Spencer said, or was asked, "Do you ever forget your lines?"
I'm really, really fortunate, and it's nothing about intelligence or working hard at it. It's something you can. It's like maths. Some people are really great at multiplication; they're ever so quick, and some people are a little bit slow, but they might be of the similar intelligence, but it's just something you're good at. I'm really good at lines. I learn them really quickly. I rarely forget them. I do forget them, obviously, we all do, because, you know, there are outside influences when you're acting. But, you know, you have to pick a glass up at a certain time and drink it at a certain time while putting your bag down. And so you have to do it all at a certain time. So it just takes away from your memory sometimes. But I'm pretty good at. I'm not blowing my own trumpet by that. It just something happens to be something that I find okay. I've got great acting friends who are far better actors than me that need a week, you know, to learn their lines and things, and they're far better actors than I am. But it's not something that comes natural to them. But I think with the singing that helped, learning all those lyrics to songs, and that probably helped in the early days.
Brilliant. And you're saying you won't play your own trumpet. Barry Derman is saying he's no question. He's just got a statement. I think he wants your phone number. He says he can't believe that you're nearly 60. You look nearly 40.
Oh, we like Barry. Thanks, Barry. Yeah. Well, you know, I couldn't get into nightclubs when I was 25, so I used to hate that. But it seems to be working okay now.
Awesome. So Bernard is asking, what was it like to be in The Moorside, which was based on a high-profile true story?
Yeah, that was terrific to tell that story. And I'll be honest with you, when obviously I wasn't a big part of it because the girls were all the big part of it, and you know, Sheridan Smith and Gemma and whatnot. It was all about 4 girls really. But when I went into the read-through, I didn't fully. Obviously, we'd heard the stories about this girl was kidnapped by her mum and all that kind of stuff. And when you got the true story, it was a different outlook on it really. And I'm not saying it changed my mind completely, but it was great to get the actual detail of the story of that. And I really enjoyed being part of that. And the guy who wrote it, I'd worked with him a couple of times before, and the director. And the performances were brilliant by all the ladies, and especially the girl that played the lead, not Sheridan, but the other guy, who played the mother of the child. You know, she was incredible. I mean, she's a comedy actress in actual fact, but she played it so beautifully. So it was great to be part of it, and it was great to find out the actual true story.
Awesome. Okay, well, we got another one, which is, how did you ever keep a straight face in Life on Mars?
Wasn't always easy, and we did have moments of, I mean, in Ashes to Ashes, me and Keely got thrown off set a good couple of times for corpsing. Life on Mars, I think because we had such a great relationship, all of us, it gave us chance to not keep a straight face at times. And nowadays, time's money and everything. But back, kind of 15 years ago when we recorded it, time wasn't quite money in the same way as it is today. So they gave you a little bit of rope to hang yourselves back then. And we had some great stories, and we had some great times, and we had a laugh whenever we could.
That's brilliant. Okay, we have a quick question from Rich from Beeson. What was the favourite character that you've played and why? And looking back, if you could play any character that you have played, what character would it be and why?
I've been asked this question before, and it's a really difficult one to answer. So the way that I would like to answer it is, I would like to put Ray Carling to one side and say that was a one-off. You're never going to get a brilliant character like that. So I wouldn't like to lump him in with everybody else. So he was obviously the character that made me, if you like, or he was the character that I got the most out of, for sure. But if I put him to one side, the prison drama that I mentioned earlier, Buried, I played the daddy of the prison. And that, everybody has a strong suit, whether you're a builder or whatever. We all tend to be really great at one thing, and we're all right at other things. What I've always been reasonable at is playing the hard man, even though I'm far removed from a hard man. But I've always enjoyed that. And the guy that I played in Buried, he was the daddy of the prison. He was the hard guy. He was the one that was in everybody's face. He was the one that put people against the wall and stuff. And not because of those reasons, but he was so interesting to play. I think because he was so far removed from myself that I just enjoyed it. And we had some real, the extras were guys that had all been to prison. So we had some really proper hard guys in there, and ones that you wouldn't have messed with at all. But he was the most interesting character to play, and I enjoyed him more than any other, apart from Ray Carling.
Awesome, thank you. We have a slightly random one now, which is, what is your favourite song to sing, and can you give us a few bars? This is from Heather and Wynn.
Well, my favourite song to sing was always Mac the Knife, which was from a hero of mine, Bobby Darin. And the reason I loved it is because I feel like I was always destined to be an actor, because I was more interested in the story of the song rather than the singing. I had friends who were amazing singers, but never always quite got the story. They didn't quite grasp. Whereas I used to get the story, but maybe wasn't the greatest singer in the world. So Mac the Knife was always a favourite. Bobby Darin was just a massive hero, man. I just thought his intonation, his inflections were. I know they talk about Sinatra, and he obviously was amazing, but for me, Bobby Darin, when he wasn't in a studio and he was singing live, was the best of the best for me. But it's very subjective. So Mac the Knife is just, it goes through 7 key changes, which is a little bit of a test for a singer. But you all know, oh, the sharp babe has such teeth, dear, and he shows them a pearly white, just a jackknife. That's it.
Awesome. It's very good.
Nobody wants to hear any more of that.
Oh, well.
Everybody's gone on to mute. Can you mute me now?
We'll have a sing along later. Okie coke. So that's all right. You're the most popular person to ask questions to so far in all of our talks. This is awesome. So did you ever get to fire up the Quattro? That's from Doug.
Well, again, that's a bit of an anomaly, because the iconic line is, Raimondo, fire up the Quattro, which in essence would say, Ray, go and start the car. But I never got to start it, drive it, touch it. I just got to sit in the back seat like some numpty. But yeah, no, I never got to drive it, and we were really fortunate on both Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes to have James Bond's stunt guy, the driving guy for James Bond, and he used to come in and do his stuff. And honestly, on those days, you needed Pampers. Everybody needed Pampers. He was so quick and scary. But I never got to drive the Quattro. No.
Oh, okay. Slightly different question. In United, it was a very moving story. But how do the stories in the drama or films affect how you see the world?
Just say that one more time, Mark, please.
Sorry. So in United,
Yeah.
it was a very moving story.
Yeah.
But how do the stories in dramas or films affect how you see the world?
Well, obviously, I said this to my wife yesterday, you know, the problem with actors is they have to believe it. They have to kind of believe what they're doing. And, you know, you sometimes kind of get really caught up in the drama of it all, and you start to believe the characters and whatnot. But again, we've all been brought up with the story of the Busby Babes. We've all known little bits and pieces about how it happened, and so to be part of something like that was really incredible. To know that they took off 3 times before the fatal, you know, they brought them back in the first time, they set off again and brought it back in, and sat, you know, and you just kind of go, that wouldn't happen these days. So those boys would have not been perished, unfortunately. So dependent on the story of the drama, it depends on how it can affect you in life. You can see life through a slightly different eye, like the Moorside thing. You kind of go, I can't believe that somebody would do that, or somebody would think that up. So it might make you a little bit more wary of the life or the surroundings or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think that we do know the majority of the time it's kind of make-believe. And but when you're part of a real story like Moorside or United, it can be very emotional. And we were all, I remember laying on the tarmac. We were filming in Newcastle, but we were laying on a snow-ridden tarmac. There was an aeroplane all bust open, and you know, smoke coming from everywhere, sirens and all that kind of thing. And it you know, you can get caught up in the moment sometimes and realize what those boys went through and how people you know, stepped up to the plate and went and helped people. And yeah, it can be quite an emotional time.
Sounds amazing. Okay, a slightly different one. Do you ever go on location to Easholt, if it's Easholt, sorry, now, or is it all filmed at Harewood House?
It's all filmed at Harewood House now. Well, I say all the outdoor stuff. So all the stuff you see in the village is at Harewood House, and all the stuff you see inside people's homes are at the Yorkshire TV studios at ITV on Kirkstall Road in Leeds. But yeah, they've got a lovely location at Harewood House. It's stunning. It's the only place you can drive in. Well, not the only place, but it's a place where you can drive into work, and within a mile you've seen a pheasant, a hare, a deer. You know, it's all full of wildlife, and it's really picturesque. Unless it's blowing a gale and tiddling it down, then it's the most awful place you've ever been.
Okay, and I don't know if you've ever starred in theatre, but someone's asking whether or not you prefer theatre or TV.
Well, I would say I have starred in I have done theatre, and I would say I prefer theatre because it's an instant response. It's kind of what I've done all my career up into being an actor. You know, you go out, you sing, or you entertain. People either like you or they don't. They clap or they don't. You get an instant reaction, basically. Whereas television, the first time you might hear anything about what you consider a really wonderful scene that you've done is that somebody on the street going, "Now then, kid, saw you in Life on Mars. You were all right." And that's about the full extent of it. Whereas theatre, you get an instant response. You have brilliant nights where people are standing up and, you know, applauding you and giving you all the accolades. And then other nights, you know, you kind of think, oh, they weren't too keen on it, and or was I? So theatre's quite an instant response, and I do prefer that live, in the moment type thing.
Okay, and someone's also asked, what do you think the outlook is for theatres with COVID and all this isolation? What do you make of all that?
I think it's certainly not looking good, and it's a real tragedy that 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 they've not been helped more than they have been. You know, my favourite theatre, which is the Royal Exchange in Manchester, have just started making people redundant, and you know they put millions of pounds, far more money into the coffers than football or anything. They put absolute billions upon billions of pounds into the economy. And I feel like they've just been, I know it's really difficult to get people in theatres, obviously. That can't happen at the moment. Maybe now with the meter thing, they can get a few in, but they can't open the doors because with half the amount of people in, they're losing money. So they're really up against it. I've got a lot of friends that are entertainers that are not just in theatres, but they work on the cruise ships, or they work in men's clubs or pubs or whatever it is. And it's going to be a long road back for them, and it's just really, really sad.
That is terrible. Okay, slightly cheery one, I think, maybe. How well do you get on with Kane Dingle?
Well, it's a funny one, because before you go into something like Emmerdale, obviously Kane Dingle is synonymous with Emmerdale. He's the hard man, and you know, he's got a bit of a craggy face, and he's the nicest fella. He's a lovely chap, highly intelligent, great fun to be around, great actor. His missus is in there; she plays the vet, and they're just a lovely family, you know, interesting and a good bloke to work with. So. You know, I thought initially we were going to have a little bit of to put it slightly, a bit of a cockfight type thing, and nothing could be further. He's a really nice chap and a really good actor.
Awesome. Would he mind you telling everyone how nice he is?
I think he'd be all right. I don't think. I mean, when he appears on TV as himself, you can just see instantly he's a nice chap.
Awesome. All right, back to Life on Mars. So how was it playing a character with views that are sexist, racist, and so on, that are so strongly different from today? The person that's asked the question has been watching it with his teenage daughters, and they said it's opened up some very interesting discussions.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I mean, it was of the period. That kind of thing went off on a regular basis. There were times when I found it very difficult to say some of the lines because, you know, I've got two girls and I've got a missus, and you know, so to be misogynistic towards the ladies is not, you know, after you've taught your daughters to be strong and you know, not to take any flick flack from anybody and stuff. It really difficult sometimes to say the words, or you know, when it was a racist comment, that was really difficult, especially when the person was there that you were saying it to. But you know, I'd always say, "I'm really sorry, mate. You know, oh, don't worry about it. This is what happens, and it's fine." So it was difficult at times, but at the end of the day, it wasn't me saying them, and I think people took it for what it was, and I'm not sure a lot of people took offence of it because they knew it was from the era. They knew that kind of thing happened, and I think we tried to do it. Can't always do that kind of stuff with a humour, but. Maybe we tried to do it with a humour and make the characters slightly flawed rather than trying to make a point.
Awesome. And then connected to that, someone said here that Matthew Graham, the creator, tweeted in April that a third series of Life on Mars was in production. Is this true? Is there news?
Well, it's not in production as such, but they're writing it as we speak. Whether it'll get into production or not, I don't know. I really hope it does. But you know, myself and Phil, I was 41 when we started Ashes to Life on Mars. Sorry, I'm 57 now. So it's a long way removed from then, and I don't know how it'd look. I don't know if John Sim would want to do it. There's a lot of things can go wrong before it gets to the screen, but fingers crossed that it does, because it'd be great to revisit it and have one last hurrah.
Brilliant. Okay, back to music. This is from Will Ingleby. If you had to make your living playing a musical instrument, what would it be, and could you hold your own? Oh, here we go.
No, I'm terrible.
What an amazing sounding trumpet.
Yeah, I play a bit of piano, but it literally is a bit of piano. So I do love it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful instrument. And if I could really play one instrument really well, I'd love to be able to play the piano really well.
Awesome. We like it that you can be in a room where you can answer such questions with such skill.
Well, it's my office, so I just have
Every
it
office should
beside
have
me.
a piano, clearly. If you could find a role tomorrow that you would like to play, what would it be, and who would you most like to act with?
Well, that's a really difficult one. I was really fortunate about 18 months ago to interview Robert De Niro for 2 nights. I got to meet him, got to spend time with him, and he was very, very charismatic, and he just made you want to kind of go, please let me act with you one day, just for 5 minutes, that'd be all right. So anything that anybody would want to write with Robert De Niro and a Yorkshire bloke that talks very rough, then I think probably him. I think he's probably the greatest for me, and again subjective, the greatest living actor at the minute. People will argue with that with Pacino and all kinds of people. You could bring lots of people into the equation, but for me, De Niro has got the best body of work. He's the most believable actor on screen for me, and I'd love to do a little bit with him, but alas, I don't think that will ever happen. Maybe somebody like Tom Hardy or something like that. You never know.
Well, we'll make sure we shout out to Robert De Niro and we share this one.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah,
I'm
he'll be
sure
over the moon to hear from me again.
Well, exactly. Okay. Is there anything that you could change about any of the parts that you played, and what would it be and why?
No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, you have very little say on the characters, really. They're kind of written for you. They're written in a certain way. They're written with a certain purpose. Like, you know, Ray Carlin was written in a certain way. They do adjust to you on something like that when they see your character, see you acting. They do start to write for you a little bit, but invariably you don't have a lot of say on the characters unless you're a big star and you're part of it very early on. Somebody like De Niro, if he was working with Scorsese, might have a big input on, you know, how the character develops. But Dino from Rotherham has no say whatsoever. So now, you know, Raymondo was the biggest thing that I was ever part of, and I thought he was great. I wanted to change anything about it.
Perfect. Well, we have a slightly more random question. What is the rugby ball that we can see behind you?
Oh, is there a rugby ball?
I hope so. Well, is it up the top there?
Oh, it's a football.
It's a football.
Yeah, I'm a massive Rotherham United supporter, and it's one of the balls that they auction off with all the you know, all the autographs of people that nobody's ever heard of. So yeah, that's why I've got that. It's yeah. I mean, I love rugby. I love watching rugby, but I've never really been part of rugby. I've always been a footballer. So, but I've been to watch some rugby games and had great fun and thought it was. I mean, they're far better athletes than the footballers, but football was my game, unfortunately.
Awesome. All right. Well, I shall finish on a compliment, which we've had through, which is from someone called Paul from up in the northwest, and he says, "Your performance in the last seasons of Ashes to Ashes was magnificent. It gets the tears going every time. Such a well-written character performed so well." Which I think pretty much encapsulates how much we've enjoyed the last 50 minutes hearing from you. So. Oh,
great. Well, that's very kind of him. And, you know, it all starts with the writing. And if the writing's not great, then the performances aren't great. And, you know, without the writers, then, you know, we'd be in a sticky wicket. But I'm glad people have enjoyed it over the years. And I absolutely enjoyed being part of it. So, yeah, winning all around.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much. I'm going to pass you over to Marcus, who's going to just say a few things, and he'll pass you over to someone else. And thank you so much for being so kind and generous with your time to talk and answer all the questions.
No problem. Nice to talk, Mark.
Dino, mate, I cannot thank you enough for tonight. Really, really does mean a lot to me that you're giving the time for the members. Guys, Dino and I have known each other for a few years now. He bailed me out to the proverbial one night for a charter night when it went a bit wrong, and I phoned him on the Friday morning saying help, and he actually rescued me on that dinner. I'll never forget that, Dino. And of course, our little trip to the St. Ledger, where we had a few drinks that day with the good ladies, isn't there?
Just a few.
Just a few, mate. Listen, just the one thing for me is that our members, you know, do a lot in the community, and what we've tried to do during the lockdown is give something back to them by doing nights like tonight. So, Mark, on this one, I think we just need to open it out and get everybody to give Dino a real big round of applause. How's that sound? If you can unmute everybody.
Thank you very much.
And just to go back to it, Dino, I did hear you say that you're currently doing. Oh, everybody back on mute if we can, Mark.
Happening.
I'll just wait for a second. And Dino, you were just saying that you're back in acting now, following social distance rules. My stepdaughter's in the profession behind the camera, and I know how difficult it is, and I do think it's the forgotten industry through this COVID-19 situation on that. So, you know, a personal thanks for tonight, mate. I know how busy you are. You know, let's be straight, trying to earn a living what you're doing, and for giving your time for free for tonight. So, again, thank you, mate. And on that note, guys, next week, I pulled another favour from Tim Bradshaw, ex-SAS, and he's going to talk about his time in Afghanistan all the way to Everest. And, you know, that will be the final conversation, 41 Connects, until later on in the year, which will be September, because we're going to have a bit of a summer break. But at this moment, I'd like to pass over to President Peter, for Peter to give thanks to Dean and the members. Peter, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Dean, and thanks everybody for attending. Dean, when are you going to kill that bent copper?
I couldn't tell you, but you never know. It might be soon.
So, no, thanks very much. It's really interesting hearing your life story, how you've got into it and everything. Very interested to hear that you're actually a singer. But
some
also,
are disputed, Peter. Some are disputed.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot, mate. It's absolutely brilliant. You must be doing all right anyway to be buying your cars from Marcus.
Only because he gives me a good discount. That's the only way I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot, mate. And thank all you guys for coming on to listen to Dean tonight. And hopefully we'll see you next Thursday to listen to Tim. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Good night. Thanks, Dino.